Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back in Disney's Freakier Friday, now streaming on Disney+.
We switched bodies.
I am freaking out right now. I think I just peed a little.
It's an absolute riot. And the only movie that can be described as
So much weirder than the last time. What last time?
it's the frequel
You ready?
we've been waiting for.
That absolutely slays.
Disney's Freakier Friday, now streaming on Disney+. Rated PG.
Welcome to No Question About That / The Promised Land crossover with Scott Saunders. I'm Ed. How's it going, Scott?
Oh, it's really... we spoke about this before we started, but I am going to complain as a British man about the weather being too hot. That is where I am. My windows are closed because there's kids screaming outside. I don't have a fan because that's going to be too loud, so I have to grin and bear it. Although, It's a pleasure to join you on the pod today.
Well, thanks for coming on. I used to talk to Rob intermittently over the years. We'd met at one of the many meetups, and when he wanted to launch what became the Promised Land, he was like, "How do I do this, Ed?" And I was like, "I mean, fuck if I know." I just kind of fell into it by accident. But was it coming on a year since he passed?
I think it's just past a year. Yeah, just past a year. A couple of weeks ago, I think, middle of June. So it's been like such a difficult year. Obviously, it wasn't. I kind of saw it. I was messaging him as it was getting a little bit worse and that kind of thing. And it's been such a really difficult year. Just losing a friend, just in general, and as well as like a podcast host. I've just been talking to you just now about having to adjust to talking to a camera ourselves, and speaking down a camera lens and into a microphone, and like obviously we worked together for 4 or 5 years. And it just, time absolutely flies. And he was massively passionate. We didn't agree on everything. At points, we kind of disagreed too much. I wouldn't change it for the world. He was brilliant.
Sad loss.
Yeah.
We are going to talk today, I think, about the state of the club, where we are at now, some bits of transfers and free form. Sorry for people who want me to be more structured. Funny thing is, we were just talking before we came on air about how I just hate doing to camera. I've done a few pieces for this, just talking to camera, and it feels totally unnatural. And I can't help myself, like going into presenter mode. And it's like, I'd much rather it be a conversation down a pub. But I do another one where I am talking to camera, non-football related. I'm just going to I'm just suck it up.
Yeah, I'm struggling at the moment with it because I'm trying to do like audio delivery of episodes, and just audio I'm fine with.
Yeah.
But then it's like, you need to look down the lens of the camera and this kind of thing, and your delivery is a little bit different and sometimes unnatural, this kind of thing. So it does it's a challenge. I'm finding that sometimes I have to record things twice, which is just like not an efficient use of time, But look, United's window so far, I'm seeing lots of frustration, obviously, and I'm trying to understand. And like what I try and do is look at the situation of the club as it is and try and get into the thinking of, why hasn't this happened yet? Oh, maybe that's why. And like, always taking a much longer term look than, I want to transfer yesterday. Now it has to happen, which is very much the way of the world nowadays.
Well, it is. I think you just have to accept some of this takes a while. I mean, partly it's all played out in the media with United. And I don't think actually United are taking longer over negotiations than any other club necessarily. We just don't see most of the rest of it because it's not so hysterically reported. Which is
a good thing, actually.
Oh, yeah. We love it. We're watching it by the minute, aren't we? And at least it fills up for us football content people. It fills up the summer, doesn't it? With stuff to talk about. Again, we were talking off air about how much of this I hate talking about transfers because so much of it just isn't real.
Yes.
Matthias Cunha has signed. We know that. We know they'd like to do the deal for Bueno, and it's probably Mbumo, and it's probably fairly close. The rest of it is so like hysterical speculation, of which there are so many moving parts in the football landscape. I mean, even from the time, say, when I was actually writing, and I made a real effort to get to know a bunch of agents and some people around football. I mean, obviously everyone's fairly coy about their relationships and all of that kind of stuff. And I knew the people in the United press office pretty well. And I kind of gave up trying to do that once I got into podcasting. Didn't seem to be what I was trying to do. But even then, people tell you one thing and a different thing happens the next day. I mean, the chances of reporting something accurately or even believing what people are saying because they all have an agenda seems so minimal. And
all the noise comes from so many different directions as well. You have, obviously, if there's a player in question, whether they're leaving or staying, it's what do the buying or the selling club think? What do United think? What does the player's agent think? Does the player want to drum up interest in order to get as many clubs to buy as possible to get the most money out of whichever club signs him? And United themselves, this has happened for so long. United themselves are used as a pawn in this. Like, Manchester United want my player. No, they actually don't. But at the same time, if we know if Manchester United are linked with this player, maybe it'll like flush other clubs out in order to come into the picture. There's so much nonsense out there. Honestly, it's so draining, and especially in the nature of like how news is reported now as well. Is how many aggregators are there out there, and it's every single development. I think I tweeted this morning, actually, that one news source had just come out with Manchester United are continuing their talks over Mbumo, and we knew that last week. And like every single time somebody new says it with any kind of credence or not in the football transfer space, it is a new development in the story, even though we've seen that development 7 times already. Yeah. And it just makes people like, why aren't they getting it done? And it's
I think the frustration is not to do with the reality of what's going on. It's the reporting over it, and people get really, really wound up by it. It doesn't help that Fabrizio Romano tweets the same thing 19 different times with slightly different wording. I mean, I almost feel like he's got a bot set up that like, it's 3 hours and 27 minutes since I last tweeted about this transfer. I'll change the wording a little bit, ChatGPT, and post it out again. Yeah.
I better say that they're in constant talks. That's his latest one, isn't it? Man United are in constant talks with Brentford over this Bryan Mbumo deal. Oh, literally constant then? Do you mean literally all the time, 24 hours a day? Are they making, like, is it like WhatsApp messages back and forth, or are they on a conference call? Like, what's happening here? It just makes people think that, that's obviously not the reality of it, but it just makes people think that, what's it been, 4 or 5 weeks now? And United are notoriously slow at doing transfers, even though I think the last summer they signed Xerxes on the 14th of July. We're not even in July as we record this, so...
Well, exactly. And we've had a month of the transfer window being open, and a week of that was not actually open either. Look, £60 million deal, wherever it ends up with, Mbumo, something around that. It's a big purchase. There's a lot of complexities around the structure of the deal with Brentford, who are obviously pushing. I mean, it's a market of one. Everyone knows that, but Brentford are pushing as hard as they can. I mean, they can't hold out because they'd be keeping a player who doesn't want to be there, who's running into the last year of his contract, even if there is a +1. So it will happen. It's just, it's the I's, crossing the T's, dot the I's on the contract with a player. I imagine the framework of that is pretty much done. It's the pretty template anyway with the Premier League. And then it's the structure of the deal and the payments and how much is up front. And United don't have a lot of cash at hand, so they don't want it all up front. Brentford would like it all up front because it suits money now is worth more than money later, and all the complexities. And that's why it takes forever and ever and ever. I mean, I suppose if United were running the art of the deal playbook, they'd have walked away very publicly at this point in order to put some pressure, but that's not really their style, is it?
Yeah, I think as well that they're kind of paying for incompetence over the last few years as well. Like, and clubs are going to try this, and I don't think you'll see Man United having the power to be able to do that until they got. I look at the contracts that they've got, and maybe we'll talk about contracts and how difficult they are to get rid of. But just the fact that United have paid over the odds. I always look at the Harry Maguire pursuit, like from 2019.
Yeah,
where I think Leicester were very much concrete. They wanted 80 million quid from the very beginning, and everyone was like, "That's ridiculous." But actually, United bid. I can't remember the numbers now, but they spent weeks and weeks trying and just paid what they wanted anyway in the end. But it's that kind of incompetence that the current incumbents are having to deal with and reverse, which it makes it so difficult. And obviously then with the cash position as well. Like if United pay more cash up front and they leave themselves short, then everybody's going to be complaining in 4 weeks' time about the fact that they have left themselves too short because they haven't sold other players and they don't have that cash to offer for another player or something like that. So it's a difficult summer. I understand the situation that they're in, though, and it is... Look, I'd like more to have happened by now. Of course, everybody would have. More in sales terms than anything else, but it's not the reality of it. And they keep telling us it's going to take multiple transfer windows, multiple summers, and it's not just like they can click their fingers and magically do 6 incomings and 10 outgoings in the space of a week, you know?
As we see with Brentford, I mean, everyone wants to negotiate hard. I mean, obviously, United are quite prepared to... And I don't think it's a bad strategy to publicly declare poverty because it might stop some of the United tax happening. We'll see about that one. On the actual players, how are you feeling about Cunha? And let's assume Mbeumo joins as a pairing. £120 million worth of talent there, a lot of goals, massive XG overperformance on both of them. You're like, yeah. How are you feeling about this one?
It's a little bit of a concern, that, isn't it? But I think... Look, we've seen Man United for years sign the best player and the most exciting player in the Bundesliga in Jadon Sancho. We all know that's gone, you know, and players
never
like
sign
this.
One from Borussia again.
ever again.
Ever again.
But I think what United need immediately is a base level of expectations of performance at Premier League level. And if you're signing players from the Premier League, chances are they know they'll be able to not hit the ground running necessarily, but the adjustment time shouldn't be as long as it would be for another player coming in from another league who's getting used to the intensity of the league and the physicality of the league. Yeah. Obviously, these players already have that. So, and they're quite used to, in Cunha's case, playing for a club that's on the brink of relegation, kind of like where Man United have been over the last year or so, and lifting them up a little bit. I'm kidding there, but with a hint of honesty, because that's where United have been. But look, I think those two players make a lot of sense for what the 10s need to be for me. So I understand why they're doing it. Paying a premium for a Premier League player, it's been the case for a long time. And I'd like them to have got Cunha for a lower fee, but if that's his release clause and that's the only way Wolves will do business, then that's got to be the way that it is. And if that is then going to set a precedent for Brentford to expect more money on Mbeumo, who outscored him last season, that's the decision. That's kind of what you have to do. But I think immediate raising not finishing 15th or 14th or wherever they finished at the back end of last season and finishing in the top half, top 6 or whatever, is the most important thing to start with. Like, get the base back. And I think these are lowish risk signings of players who are ready to kind of take a step forward. And obviously, you mentioned the outperformance of XG. They might not repeat those numbers next season at United, but at least you're looking at the roles that are necessary, the roles that are needed, the kind of qualities of the players in those roles and how they match to these two players. And I think you can see sense in them. There's a lot more to do, obviously, but it's a good start.
Yeah, no, I feel pretty much the same. They're two very good players. How elite they are, who knows? Cunha obviously failed when he went to Atletico for different reasons, right? He was a bit young, different system, played up front. He's kind of reinvented himself, I think, from what he was at Hertha to now. I can't see him failing just because of, as you say, done it in the Premier League. How good he becomes, open question mark. And Bruno, I like him as a player. I think he'll add a different dimension. Aside from the XG of a performance, I think just the style of what he does and how direct he is, people will like a lot of that. He's got a lot of qualities. He's obviously grown quite a lot in the last 3-4 years at Brentford from where he was. I'm not sure at 2021 people had assumed he'd have been a top level player. funnily enough, their per 90 non-penalty XG and actual goals, it's almost exactly the same. It's funny, yeah, Duncan Castle's on his podcast, which I absolutely hate, but I feel I have to consume to know what's going on, or at least get a hint of what people are talking about. Basically gave the Brentford line, which is Bruno outscored him last season, therefore he should be a higher price, but it's just not true. If you look into the data, yeah, whether it was massive overperformance and they can't repeat it, I don't know. Cunha's done it 2 years in a row, which gives you some confidence, I think. That he just scores a lot of bangers as well. That's why he's overperforming.
That's important. You need that kind of satisfaction, especially when like United's difficulty breaking down low blocks, this kind of thing. If you've got more players who are able to do that, then, you know, Bruno Fernandes was one of those types of players. I'm trying to think of long-range goals in the last season or so, but, you know, he has done a few of those for United, so it is satisfying and quite important that you have those players who can take long-range shots and have pretty much good accuracy with them. But yeah, look, there's plenty more to do, but I like the approach, I think, so far. And look, there's been links today, I'm not sure if you've seen yet, with Ollie Watkins and players like this. I'm sure it doesn't seem to be too much in that at the moment, just a player on a shortlist kind of thing. But yeah, if they're looking to be better in the Premier League, by Premier League proven players, they will have to adjust to the expectation of playing for United and the pressure, obviously, and that can tend to get players a lot of the time. But overall, I think you need to not sign specifically for a manager, but at least have players who are fit. Like I've talked how physically lacking United have been over the last few years, and with Mbeumo especially, he runs backwards, he runs forwards, he's quite intense, quite quick, and Cunha himself can wriggle out of like small spaces. Remember that game on the first game of the season before last at Old Trafford, I think it was. United beat Wolves 1-0, but he absolutely rinsed United through the middle of the pitch and carried the ball when Erik ten Hag didn't pick a midfield. He has good qualities as well, and like it's not going to miraculously lift United to competing for titles or whatever it is, but you've got to have a realistic expectation that this is going to be a slowish build, and they need a hell of a lot more. So maybe at the end of the transfer window, we can reassess where the expectations should be. But look, United are at their worst ebb in my lifetime. So as long as I've been watching United for like 30 years, don't ever remember United finishing as low as they finished last season. So expectations are low at the moment, and any positives I think anybody will take, right?
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts, it knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief, and it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI, it's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Walmart Business is in the business of helping your business. Regardless of whether you're building bridges, building spreadsheets, or building lesson plans. Ooh, that looks fun. Walmart Business can help save you time, money, and hassle, so you can focus on what you're building instead of what your supply closet is missing. In short, we take care of business, so you can do more with yours. We're the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
I want to get onto exits in a bit, but before we do that, what other incomings would you prioritise? We may be, after Mbeumo's done, we may be on a sell to buy. So you can pick whatever number you think is realistic for Rashford, Garnacho, Sancho and Anthony, put them together, and that's your package for what comes next. Do you prioritise midfield? Do you prioritise number 9, the goalkeeper, another wing back? How would you rank and rate these needs?
So I'm pretty adamant that I do want a new goalkeeper. In terms of the priority list, if United are to go through the rest of the summer, I think after Mbumo, let's count Mbumo as done. Because touch wood, I think it will be done. I do think they need at least 3 more, and that's right through the spine of the team. Goalkeeper, midfielder, striker. Maybe there's an argument to say that if you're buying goals in the 10 positions and you've still got Xerxes, who I do prefer in the 10s, I think. But where's he going to play if they sign these players? Where's Xerxes going to play? I do like him. First few months, I was like, I don't think this is going to work. But I think after he leaned out a little bit, and in one game, I think he played against Arsenal, he looked a lot quicker. So I think maybe he could do a job in there for a while. I would have put striker first, but because they've got the goals in the 10s, theoretically, I think maybe you can play around with it a little bit and look at opportunities. But goalkeeper is my second/first priority, I think, just because of... I don't want to completely write off Onana, but it just seems like every single time United have been building some kind of head of steam in a match or something like that, then something happens and throws everybody off. And that is... If you're a defender and you've got that behind you, you've just got that knowledge of this has happened before in the Champions League numerous times, and in Premier League matches where we're in control or we're in the game or whatever, and a mistake goes, and the first thing that happens after United concede generally is, we've conceded, and then you concede another one. And games can get away from you really quickly. A goalkeeper for me is quite important, but I understand the need in central midfield as well, especially if you're playing Bruno in there. You need legs. So I think if you ask me tomorrow, maybe I'll give you a different answer, but it'd still be maybe striker, goalkeeper, midfielder. But if you ask me tomorrow, maybe it'll be a different answer. But I think those 3...
It's difficult, isn't it? Because midfield really depends on Kobbie Mainoo's fitness program this summer. I mean, they're going to get him stronger and quicker, so we were told. Touch wood, because it would help him. I think he's got all the qualities to be a top level player. Just that physicality is a concern. If Bruno is going to play in midfield, which seems likely given the transfer business this summer, then you're right. We need a monster in midfield. Someone who's deeply, deeply physical in a way that UAT is not, sadly. Many qualities, I'm not writing him off as completely wasted, although I did hear from some people in and around the club that there were quite a lot of people who were like, no, on this one. So who knows? Other business does depend on how they see midfield looking, what's going to happen with Kobbie. You can't really play him alongside Bruno, I don't think, but who knows? We'll see whether they think about that one. Onana, I completely agree with you. He's confidence destroying. I mean, up to about November, he had the best stats in Europe in his post-shot expected goals against column, right? So he was saving 5 or 6 goals more than the average goalkeeper at that point. But when they lose confidence, they get the yips. It's so much more destroying than of team confidence than if a striker is missing opportunity. Højlund, I mean, it felt like United were playing with 10 men a lot last season, but that's the worst that happens, really. You can't destroy the team. You can just miss some goals. Whereas a keeper, you're always like... and I think defenders react to that as well. When David De Gea had the yips in his last couple of seasons, I thought defenders were getting deeper and deeper and deeper and more in the mindset of we can't let shots go off. And I feel like part of that's with Onana, and we haven't seen the passing at all, right? So that's what we bought him for. He just launches it long, whether by instruction or his own lack of confidence. So it is a big one.
Yeah, I don't think Amorim is really all that big on, or as big as Erik ten Hag was on the importance of that distribution either. You look at the goalkeepers he's used in the past, not particularly renowned for that. Although you do need a certain level of ability to pass out. But yeah, I think there's a lost art in goalkeeping. It's saving the ball. It needs to be considered quite important. I think just the way that Onana has kind of let the team down, like not intentionally, of course, obviously, but the way that he has cost United in certain matches, I just don't think you can afford going into another season knowing what you've seen over the last 2, knowing that is a potential risk every time you go on the pitch, because United need to get up the table, and they have historically over the last few years had a lot of problems scoring goals. If you're conceding goals first, then it makes it infinitely harder. If United can, in Ten Hag's first few months, he won a lot of games 1-0. Remember, after the first 2 defeats that he had, and he changed everything and won a good few games 1-0. I think just get back to that. I'll take it for a little while. But yeah, there's just on Cobby, actually, I think there is lots of expectation on him that because he's 19, 20 years old, right? I forget when his birthday is, but he doesn't need to play every single week already. And like we do this thing with players who've come through the academy who are really good, put them in the team straight away. And then you look at like the players are held to standards like Rooney when he broke through or something like that, probably is star kind of dimmed a little bit, maybe a little bit earlier in his career than he'd maybe have hoped. You got players like Lamine Yamal at 16, 17 in the first team at Barcelona doing the stuff that he's doing and has the reputation of like the best player in the world or best young player in the world at the very least. Not every player has to have that path. And I think, to me, Bruno and Cobby doesn't work, but Bruno or Cobby could maybe work. And I think if, like, Bruno's obviously signed a new contract last year and obviously he had the drama about whether he was going to stay or go a few weeks ago. Don't think that's particularly off the table. Maybe that's a conversation we revisit next year. If Cobby has some like physical, like in terms of like how quickly he covers ground, and you've mentioned there that he's on a specified training program, which I've heard as well. But he doesn't have to play every single minute of every single game immediately. If he's okay with that and developing like a little bit slower, I think that's probably the optimal outcome here. Yeah. But maybe he wants more minutes. I don't know. But I think, to me, like the fact that not every 19-year-old has to play every single week, to me.
Fully agree. I was doing some research. I was writing my newsletter and I was thinking about Alejandro Garnacho and his path. The issues with him are mostly off-field than on-field. He is only behind Lamine Yamal and Desiree Doué in terms of under-21 players and their output and production. You can argue about whether 21 goals and assists in 50-odd games is good or not. But as I was doing this research, I came across one of these academic articles. I think it was Journal of Sports Science about the development pathway for players and just how much of a jump, on average, like players make between the ages of 22 and 24 sort of thing. And we think they should all be the finished article at 19, 20. And it's just not true of most players. Now, there are the standouts. Messi, like everyone at Barcelona knew who he was when he was like 13 years old, and it was always planned. And I remember going to a Barcelona game in 2005 or 6 or something like that. And I think he'd only made 2 or 3 appearances, and the whole of Camp Nou was chanting Messi, Messi, right? Everyone knew who he was. Lamine Yamal, best player in the world at age 17, argue about where he is in the rankings. It's just not very usual. And so, obviously, Alejandro's not going to be at the club anymore. I suspect he'll go on to have a very good career. It's up to him, obviously, and his how much he wants it. And I think Cobby will have a great career as well. Things can get in the way of development. We'll see, but not every player develops at the same pace. Some, like Rooney, the best he ever was at 22, 23. By the time he hit 26, he was on the slide.
You could look at Ronaldo as well. I'm fortunately old enough to have seen Ronaldo make his debut in 2003. Yeah. And here I remember how people were frustrated with him in certain weeks. Like it was the first day back after the 06 World Cup, really, one day, I think, where he kind of became this like monster of a man. And I think he started scoring goals from that point. He had flashes. Obviously, we know the skill that he came in with. We know the story about when Sporting played United, and like, oh my God, we have to get him. But you can cut these things down nowadays into like a 3-minute highlight reel, and you can think, wow, Ronaldo was the finished product at 18 or 19. He wasn't. Like Ruud van Nistelrooy, obviously, as the whole fallout with him, but he was a striker who wanted the ball crossed in at that time. Obviously, that's what you expected out of your wingers. The game's changed a bit since then, but Ronaldo was really frustrating for a good few years at the start of his career at United. So,
absolutely. I mean, two points. I was at the game on his debut. I went away from that going, my God, what have we just signed? It was unbelievable. 20 minutes. It was fantastic. And then, in the following couple of years, I remember Alan Hansen said something like, I would much rather play him every week than not. He was so dismissive. Yeah, fuck that guy. But Still, it was one of those things where, yeah, he was deeply frustrating, and pre-social media age, and now there would be a whole bunch of I don't know, Cunha FC accounts going, this guy's trash, get him out. As is the way of the world.
Yeah, it's just important to just reaffirm the fact that players develop at different speeds in certain positions as well. So I think this kind of came from talking about Cobby. Like, he doesn't need to play every week. If he's okay with that, I think United do need to agree the new deal and give him that, find a way just to kind of put the speculation at rest. But if there's a succession plan and he can't, he's got to work in one of those two midfield roles, at some point. The fit doesn't look quite natural at the moment, but I'm not saying you can't do it and can't achieve it. But that doesn't have to be immediate, you know?
Absolutely. At 19, Bruno was looking like he was heading out of the game, right? He was nowhere, right? So, all right. I mean, I that came from me asking the question about what do we need. I agree on the goalkeeper. I don't think we can go into the next season without a real striker. The Xerxes I like. Doesn't feel like he's a natural number 9. Doesn't sniff out goals really. And just for the team to function, I think we probably need a Højlund replacement. It would have been much better to have signed an experienced striker alongside Højlund, of course, right? Just to take the weight of the world is on his shoulders, and it looks like it. Midfield, I do worry about the balance. Uarte's ability to play in a possession-based team. That's why Paris Saint-Germain got rid of him. It kind of suggests he won't work in an Amorim team because he wants heavy possession. Similar Casemiro. Casemiro is only going to be playing Premier League games next season, well, save for our domestic cup game. It's not the best fit for him. I do wonder whether we'll get a regression. It felt great when he was having those brilliant performances in the Europa League. Just there was not the physicality and the pressing that you get in the Premier League. I think we might get Casemiro from 18 months ago back again. It's just a fear. I'm not trying to be negative. And Bruno, yes, he actually, I was amazed how well he adjusted his game to playing at 8. I thought he would be Hollywood Ball FC, you know, and he wasn't. He was a sensible number 8 in there and all the quality that he's got. But yeah, player short for me, just physical monster, covers a lot of ground, but good enough with the ball to be able to progress it. Not quite sure what blend of players that is exactly. I don't think it's any of the players we've been linked with, honestly. I would have walked away from Edison. I think he would have felt like a little bit, I'm sorry for how reductive this sounds, a bit Fred 2.0. He is a bit like that. Maybe more careful with the ball, but he's good all-rounder, but brilliant at nothing, in my limited opinion. So yeah, another midfielder of whom I'm not exactly sure, but that's the balance. We can get away without more wing-backs if Ahmad's going to play on the right wing-back a lot. He's got some development to do there, but I think that will make the team immediately more attacking. I have a lot of, maybe misplaced, but I have a lot of faith that Dorgu will become a very good player. I think certainly he's got the raw ingredients. So.
I like him.
I like it. I like him. Yeah, there's some stuff that looks a bit messy, but it looked messy when he was in Italy, especially with the passing, maybe the final ball. But his physicality, his willingness to go on the outside, his what feels like constant drive to attack. I like all of that.
Yeah, like he's 20 as well, like of this age as well. So we're expecting these players to come in and immediately improve the team and make them like add certain layers, but it's a lot. It's a lot to expect. Like you're not going to get this immediate improvement straight away, but I do think I was very much in this camp towards the end of the season of looking at the possibility of not playing European football next season and thinking how much United do struggle physically, especially if you are stuck with a bunch of these players. Like not having those extra games in the week, as much as we cursed it at the time after losing it was a terrible performance in the Europa League final, and we cursed it, and obviously it was awful to watch and awful to live through. Maybe as the season goes on, if United were in Europe next season, I don't think that we'd be able to kind of see much of an uplift, to be honest. I think it would just be kind of more of the same unless United went really aggressively in the market because of the extra money that came in. But I think I'm touching wood here and fingers crossed and this kind of thing, but have reason to. I have some optimism for next season. The fact that there's going to be fewer games might mean that I can deal with the physicality a bit better, because that is one of their massive weak points at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. I'm a little more on the fence about that one, because it probably would have meant 2 extra players, or at least not having to sell everyone. As it happens, I think everyone would be happy to see Anthony leave. Maybe this is a good transition to talk about departures. And Garnacho, Rashford appear to have fallen out with the manager for different reasons. And Sancho, nobody at the club wants back. Nobody. So maybe we'd be looking to sell all these players anyway, right? And the cost of not making the Champions League is one very high quality player, because you're pretty much guaranteed 60 to 70 million. Now, even if you do crap in the group stage, and it's very, very hard. Even United couldn't come worse than 24th, surely, in a league table.
That's a challenge not accepted at the moment.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's, it could be 80 to 100 million you'd be reasonably expecting. But there is. I mean, it's the club will... We don't have a PSR challenge. I think that's the hurdle of the 40 million sort of shortfall from COVID was accepted by the Premier League. They're not going to relitigate that one. The club is okay. We don't see them making emergency signings today, sales today in order to meet PSR. I don't think it's rolling 3 years. I don't think anyone is worried about that. There is a cash problem, and a bigger cash problem coming up, which may prompt some discussion around reorientation of the ownership coming up. I mean, we're in the closeout period for the exclusive part of this deal. Ends in August. I think that might prompt maybe Sir Jim to buy a few % more shares. It looks like it's going to be done in stages. That may prompt him to put some more cash in. We'll see about that one. That could certainly do with it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, cash really is only going to come from these sales. And so how are you feeling about... I mean, I categorised it there as 2 falling out with the manager, one who seems to have revived himself, and one that there would be a trail of dead bodies, like over my cold dead body and over everyone else's cold dead body, that will see Sancho back at United. But how are you feeling about those guys?
I think everybody has to go, obviously. And there's a balance to strike, I think, between... We know the position that United are in. Obviously, we talked about it already. The fact that they do need to raise that money in order to, as it stands, to reinvest in the team. And I think there are people at the moment who are frustrated that United haven't done anything really in terms of sales. Obviously, we've had the confirmation of the contract expiries and Johnny Evans' new role and Eriksen and Lindelof leaving, and the fact that those wages kind of come off the bill moving forward. But we knew that anyway. How many clubs out there are going to queue up at like from the very beginning of June or whatever it is to go and sign players who aren't performing? Like it's not a... Especially when they're on the wages that Rashford and Sancho are on. So it's not like you can magically click your fingers and just do these deals. I think in Rashford's case, he's holding out for that Barca move. I think that's the way it's looked. Unfortunately, I think they'll end up being a loan, won't it? So I think we're going to have to defer that one.
That's the worst case scenario for United, I think, because it's a one club market, and depending on how they look at that loan, if Rashford isn't willing to take a discount on his wages, and why should he? He's got a contract, right? None of us would. And if it's a one-club deal and Barcelona, it'll be a level of wages Barcelona in their situation won't do, and I think we'll end up subsidising him for a year. And
you have to hope in that case that he goes out there at one of the biggest clubs in the world
and performs, and
then shows everyone, hey, maybe he is worth that money, because he's till 2028, I think, right? Contract 2028.
Yeah. So yeah, plus one. Yeah.
Oh my, yeah. So United will still have a value that they can get on him. Maybe this time next year if he does go through that Barcelona loan. But it seems like that's the only thing he's holding out for. Yeah. And if he's not going to look at moves elsewhere, and Barcelona have their plan of getting him on loan anyway, and they're using his own camp to make United do that, then I think maybe that's the way it'll go. The immediate one, really, you're looking at is Garnacho. This might be theoretically the easiest one to sell, given the wage that he's on. More clubs will probably come to the table with more money, and obviously that's the most lucrative sale in terms of like cash that United are able to do. But it just seems like I'm looking at the the deals that have been happening, like Chelsea and Gittins, and like you're just thinking how many, I think Napoli are looking at other players as well, and Doy from Bologna, and you just think, who's going to be that club that does that?
Especially if he wants to stay in the Premier League. There's more money in the Premier League, so more clubs could afford the kind of Gittins level fee. I mean, Garnacho's numbers are better if we're benchmarking, as everyone seems to want to do these days, so that should be your baseline for the fee. I think there's a lot of dissonance in the United fan base of, get this guy out, we hate him, but we want a massive fee. So I definitely felt like an outsider on that whole thing, because I just find the social media stuff kind of funny and meaningless in a sense. But I'd say 90+% of the fan base are like, this is showing disloyalty, we hate him as a result. And I'm just like, it's a snarky kid, so what? But
he is a kid.
He is a kid, and he behaves like younger than 20. Yeah, clearly. And you hope one day he'll grow up and look back on this and go, yeah, that's pretty dumb. But we have unrealistic expectations of these people. I know how I behaved when I was 20.
Like I said that the other day as well about me. Like,
I was an absolute idiot.
Yeah, me too. Still am, but
yeah. Well, didn't want to say.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So I don't know. I kind of take all that with a pinch of salt. I'm not very top ready about it, where I'm like, you have to show ultimate loyalty to the cause all the time. Just to plug out, that's what I wrote my newsletter this week on social media and how people react to it. But there's more going on behind the scenes. I don't think Amram would boot a player out because of that. There's obviously a lack of meeting of minds on exactly what is required from him on the pitch and maybe off it too. Similar to Rashford, actually, Amram was very complimentary about Rashford and his qualities, but just said we didn't. What was the phrase he used? Didn't see eye to eye about where he was going to play or his performance in training. It was something like that. Yeah.
Ironically, Rashford's now talking up his ability to play in other positions and at number 9 for Barcelona.
Yeah, this is an interesting line. Yeah.
To me, like, you just look at it, it does seem like it's at a natural endpoint, so maybe he's willing to make those things happen to go to like a Barcelona. We've seen the Liverpool and Trent thing, which has been quite funny. But,
the meltdown.
Yeah, it's been funny, but like I suppose there's something to say, like if you want a new challenge in your career, then one of those clubs, Barca, Madrid, but it's maybe a different kettle of fish, and you're willing to make things happen in order to make that move happen. But yeah, it's an interesting couple of ones there. Sancho is that the worst signing United have ever made? Like,
it's got to be close to it for value for money. Incredible, massive wage packet and a huge fee. And I mean, we were talking about how bad the deals were. Imagine we'd done that the year before, 100+ million. How we'd be feeling now about it. Yeah. It's really hard. As soon as that deal with Chelsea fell apart, I was like, this is looking like a contract termination, because he only has 1 year. We're not going to sign him up to that extra year because we'd just be locking ourselves into paying more. That would be back to the fat assets time of Ed Woodward signing Matteo Darmian up to an extra 27 years of contracts because we wanted a little bit of an extra fee or whatever. So the very real scenario of us terminating his contract, paying up half of it and saying, off you go, you can have a freebie and take your... So it's there. Obviously, they'd like to be able to do a deal. There is money available for Sancho, but no transfer fees in Turkey. I think, there's that whole tax situation, which is a bit weird, which allows them to pay big wages. But the incoming top transfer fee, I think, is still 18 million euros coming into Turkey, which we might take, by the way. That would be PSR even. As I know nothing about this, but the reporting seems to indicate that Sancho is looking at Italy as a possibility. There may be a fee, but obviously the TV contract in Italy is somewhat lower than the Premier League. And so the wages may not be an offer there.
Maybe there's a magic Dortmund coming out of nowhere with 55 million in their pockets again.
Seems very unlikely that they'd spend it on that yet.
Yeah.
They've been there and been burnt by that as well.
I think maybe Italy could happen, like just gut feeling, like looking at these things. But it would require somebody to fall on their sword a little bit. You just hope really that, look, United are looking at the situation. You'd hope that Sancho's looking at the situation and they can both like sit down and go, this ain't working. Can we just find a way just to get you out, like, and have everybody start again? Because I think Sancho's not going to get the kind of wages that United are paying him anywhere else, really.
And he's only got 1 year left.
Yeah. So just kind of do a deal and make him, like, I think Juventus potentially might be an option for him. I don't know, but these things can change on a whim, like, instantly. So I'm just maybe speaking in hope more than anything else that United aren't stuck with him.
With the Chelsea 5 million, we really only need 10 million to cover the PSR costs. And then even if we had to subsidise his wages for 1 year at half of his wage, it's 5 million quid or so. I think everyone would... It's better than a contract termination. Just. Not much, but just. And we're not getting... Now Chelsea returned him. No one is paying 25 million for him. So that would just be the best we can do is net even, move on, see whether he is able to get back whatever he had at Dortmund. He seems, I'm just making this up, he seems personally offended by United in some way, which is interesting. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but all that leaked stuff from his agents, I assume, about he thought that Ten Hag had been disclosing personal medical information in public. I always thought it was just bad English from Ten Hag. He phrased it weirdly, but yeah, who knows? Seems to be there. And then Anthony, I mean, it was great that he had a good season at Betis because that's created a window and Betis has just sold 2 players. Pull your cash out. You can afford him now.
Ironically, does seem like the most likely one, the easiest one to do. But yeah, like we were talking about Rashford earlier and the loan, like these loans can actually work. So look, there's lots more players than the 4 that we're talking about as well that I think do need to be moved on, and that will require a bit more ruthlessness on United's part, which I don't know if we'll see. And I was hoping that I would see more. Maybe over the course of the summer, I would like United to take a bit of control over, like they've done with Garnacho, in a sense, take a bit more control over telling players, no, you're not, we're selling you, or you're going to be, maybe they can't go and threaten it. You, this first team player on first team wages, can sit on the bench because we're signing a replacement for you. Mm-hmm. Maybe there are players who are willing to do that. I would like to see, if there's one thing I haven't seen out of United yet that I'd like to see more of, is that kind of ruthlessness with the players. But I understand to a degree their hands are tied. And like I say, this will take time. Like I think I said a few months ago that, maybe even a couple of years ago actually, I don't think United get out of this mess until all of these like contracts which are sagging them down expire.
Yes,
you know?
It's a 3 or 4 year program.
Yeah. Unless they can find ways out of it. But like you got Sancho and Casemiro up next summer, Rashford 2028. Like I think they will sell him eventually. But what if they don't? At some point, then you're going to be stuck with that wage for another 3 years on top of this, which is, at the time, that was crazy to give out that money anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they paid at the peak of Rashford's performance. In retrospect, they probably should have seen the lumpiness of his career over time. But I think we were all like, okay, he's found the perfect position for him. Attacking, left-sided forward, freedom, not expected to stay too wide. And then Ten Hag changed it the next year and he was expected to be a wide player covering for a left-back that didn't exist. I think that did something to Rashford's head. Everyone has told me stories about what is going on with him, none of which have ever been actually confirmed. And so I was like, I'm not going to repeat any of that stuff on here. Not because I expect to get sued by Camp Rashford, just it's irresponsible to, like, I just think some of it's kind of ridiculous, but I hope for his sake. Like, I know I'm, again, an outlier here. I wish there was a rapprochement, right, with Ten Hag, and he could find a space where he does the things he's good at. He's not expected to do things he's bad at, pressing, tracking back, all of that kind of stuff. Hey, by the way, when Marcus Cunha arrives and he doesn't track back, I want no one to complain about it. That's the player we've bought, right? He will press, but once it goes past his line, he's not going backwards, right? So don't complain about it. That's who we've bought. But yeah, I think he will be sold. It's better for him and the club that we all move on. I suspect with Rashford, it's a loan this year. With Anthony, I think we can find a sale. We need 32.5 million to clear on PSR. It's one of the dumbest deals we've ever done. There's a way out, thankfully. Sancho, it's messy. And Garnacho is the one where we can get fee. And I kind of agree there should be some more ruthlessness. If you remember, I don't think Barada said it. I think it might have been a a report that the new incoming management team, Ineos, hired management team, had an expectation that you have 2 years at the club. If you haven't performed in those 2 years, that was a statement that you had to leave, and they were going to push people out. In order to do that, they have to pay the kind of wages that are market level, not premium level. So we've been chasing a return to glory by paying a premium for everyone. It looks like Mbeumo and Cunha are on what would be about mid-ranked wages at Manchester United, much, much more sensible. It was a thing that worried me about the Gyökeres deal. That doesn't look like it'll happen. That for a player coming from a secondary league who's 27 in a couple of days' time, who'd never performed at an elite level outside of Sporting, Sporting wanted a big fee and big wages, that if it didn't work out, you couldn't get rid of him. And I think we have to think like that. You have to think like, if it doesn't work out, what's the path for exit? And we've seen the ridiculousness at Chelsea with all the players. They've got like 15 forwards right now, but they're paying them quite low wages, which means even on those 7 or 8 year contracts, again, ridiculous, that there is an exit for them because every single club in Europe looks at the whole package. Transfer fee, wages over a 5-year period, agent's fee, you lump them all together because that's your PSR cost. You split it out over 5 years. Can we afford that? What percentage of our revenue is that, or percentage of our wage budget is that? That's why some of the numbers reported on Rashford, I was like, I don't believe it. And I was starting to ask people around, what is it really? Because the way it was reported, it was about 15% of United's wage bill. No club in Europe does that. None. Right? So I was like, I don't believe it. What is the real number here? But anyway, every club looks like that, the total package. So as United wind out these contracts and bring players in on market level wages, they will have to outperform the market in terms of their thinking and so on in order to move forward, because we're playing like everyone else now on a wage budget that is now sub 200 million. Puts us about fifth or sixth in the Premier League. Amazing, really, that we've got to that point.
And there's still many more cuts to be made as well, obviously. But I've spoken about the wage bill, the wage structure as well. Like quite often, just with your best player should be a highest earner, really. And Bruno is in that area. But you obviously have other players who are just not wanted in the long term, who are earning equivalent or more or around the same number as him. And that throws everything off. So the players that have been signed over the last year or so, it seems like they are moving towards that direction of correcting that pecking order of what players earn. I think you look at the new contracts like Ahmad and Yoro's earnings, that kind of thing. It just does seem like lower end, but like enough to justify their talent as a youngster. And like that's how it should be. And obviously, and if United are, we spoke about those contracts they need to get off that nobody will take. Casemiro, Sancho, Rashford, these kinds of players. Once those are off, you do have more of a established tier system and like structure which actually reflects what your football team is. So I think, and obviously when they're on lower wages, it's easier to kind of get these players away if they don't perform or whatever. So it's an important thing, but it will take time, which is not of the essence really for a lot of people.
No, certainly not. All right. What a troll through the state of the club. We are going to have patience. It's going to be really hard for a lot of people to accept that. Unfortunately, I'd be really surprised even after this summer is finished if we've done 11 deals or something like that. There are certainly players that we'd like to leave, both you and I and many fans, that won't leave. And we'll just have to accept that. And not necessarily the prominent ones. I think it is some of the fringe players who we'd like to probably move on and make some room for some of the very talented youngsters at the club that would like to see some opportunities. And of course, if we don't sign a number 9, Chida Obi will get a bunch of games that he probably wouldn't have got otherwise, which feels very raw, but maybe that is good. Maybe another player breaks out that I'm not quite sure are ready. Most of the players who are in the under 18s and maybe moving up to the 21s, 23s this year feel like a lot of them could probably do with a loan because the jump is so high from academy level to Premier League. But maybe we don't do all those 11 deals or whatever. Some of them get an opportunity and break out in a way that Kobbie Mainoo did and Alejandro Garnacho did and Rashford before him and may surprise us. And Mason Greenwood as well. And, not that kind of surprise, please, but, the quality. We may be surprised. one of them exceeds expectations. He's ready before we think they are, talking about their development path, and gives us another player that is a freebie, and that's what our academy should be.
Yeah, Marcus Rashford himself, spend a bit of time talking about him. Nobody really expected came in, scored 4 goals in 2 games, and then automatically has a launch pad for his career. It can happen. So, I think just in general, I think where everybody is at the moment is you've watched that tragedy of a season last year and everything else that goes on around the football club as well. We know all the stories, we know all the moves that they've made, and there's not a good feeling around, and that's completely fine and natural and understandable. But I'm kind of telling myself we've hit a bottom. Hopefully, I hope we've hit a bottom. But I've said that the last 2 years, so I don't know.
It's got to be.
We'll see.
Yes, if it's worse than it was last season, unfortunately, Ruben will be gone by November, December time. But I don't expect it will be. I think we'll see some improvements. Maybe not as rapidly as everyone wants, but it will improve. We'll all be watching the financials very, very closely to make sure we can execute on these deals. And I'm sure there'll be a surprise in the market too, right? And just hopefully not too late. Pre-season training starts in a week's time. Unbelievably.
I'm just looking for. I'm just enjoying the break. I'm not even watching. Not watching the Club World Cup at all.
I'm not either. I haven't watched a minute of it. I've only seen the goals on socials. I mean, for a couple of reasons. I just this is not a tournament anyone needed or wanted, and it's just Gianni's. I wonder what his cut is of the $1 billion that DAZN magically came up with and then got invested in by Newcastle United's owners a week later. It's so unbelievably corrupt. I just can't watch it for that. It's so corrupt.
And it's there's lots of talk about the players and too many minutes. And obviously that's a completely valid point and I'm very much in that camp as well. What about the exhaustion? I've watched too much football. I can't watch anymore.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I need a break.
Absolutely. That's why there were no TV deals around the world, basically, of any note, because before DAZN magically came up with $1 billion worth of Saudi money, because no one needs more football. Unfortunately, the clubs are now drunk on it, and I suspect that there'll be an awful lot of pressure from European clubs to either rebalance the number of European clubs that are in there or expand it to 48 teams for the Qatar Club World Cup in 2029 in November and December of the 2029 season. Man, even saying that, it sickens me. Okay, Scott, I think we should probably leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Joining on this crossover.
Yeah, been great. We should do more.
We will. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for listening. You can catch me at NQAT Pod on every platform you think about. Where can we find you, Scott?
You can find me at _Scott Saunders on social. For my personal, you can find the Promise Am podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube as well. I was trying to think of all the places that it's on. Yes, just a podcast that comes out a few times a week. I say I'm going to go daily, and then I don't do a couple of days, and then I'm like, oh God, I said this and I didn't do it. But yes, it's out there, and I think the reason why we've linked up today is because we kind of have the same kind of feelings towards United and same feelings towards football. So our old phrase is never too high, never too low, because I can't live in a constant state of anger. I just can't.
I'm trying not to. It's not good for the health, is it? All right, Scott, thank you, listeners, viewers, wherever you are on whatever platform. Thank you very much.